Oh, this is one of the first organites I ever made.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, years
Wow.
ago. I just keep this one just for sentimental.
Yeah, yeah. To show how far you've come along the path.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so ultimately you were telling me your background and you're incredibly wise for a 25-year-old. You've been
Thank you.
homeschooled, you've been self-taught and you've been led obviously by spirit and an intuitive understanding about what you're doing. And you've really over the last decade been able to master the art of finding ways to deal with pollution, to deal with EMF pressure that we're all under, to deal with psychic attack and everything. I'd like you to share with me what you were going to say about your example of the ability that you have to clear things.
Well, thank you, Cherie. I appreciate that very much. And yes, I was specifically going to speak about clearing brainwashing, clearing psychic pressure. And the example that I'm going to give is in a county of Pennsylvania called Lancaster County. And I grew up in Lancaster County. I don't live there anymore. However, growing up there, I observed a lot of pollution from the farming practices there, and additionally from the vast amount of factories in the region. And of course, there was also 3 Mile Island, which is one of the largest nuclear reactors in the country, and I believe the world. So a very intense energetic disturbance over the entire region. And additionally, there was a growing population, so more and more cell towers being put up, more and more infrastructure going in, power lines, these types of things. And as I said earlier, when I was 15, I started to realize these things were an issue. Over the following 5 years, I did a lot of research and got to the point where I started creating my own tools. And when I started creating my own tools and doing some of this work in Pennsylvania, I observed that there was quite a thick haze of pollution that would hang in the air every day, no matter where you went. And there was also a general attitude in the region of very nosy and rather snappish behavior. People not being very tolerant of each other, people not really caring much for the other folks' feelings. And honestly, a lot of folks just completely focused on the day-to-day, almost drudgery of life. So when I started creating some more larger pieces of orgone technology and integrating tensor tools, what I began to observe is the clearing of the sky, at first over my home. And then as I began to expand out and place devices around me in the region, I began to see that clear area continue to expand. And then I began to teach workshops on these topics, teaching folks how to create, basic and some more mid-level devices. And that zone of clarity of the sky continued to expand. And as that expanded and the sky opened up, this pure light from the sun and the moon and the stars, the light of the heavens was coming in more clearly into the region, into the realm. And I distinctly remember one night being in the town of Marietta, which was close to where I lived, and hearing somebody on the street. I think was walking past a pizza shop or something, and I heard someone comment that they could see the stars like they had never seen them in their entire life. That really stood out to me because it was one of the first times when I heard from an outside perspective that someone was having a different experience in life because of the work that I was doing. And it really encouraged me to be observant and look around and see what else might have changed for people. I also distinctly remember before I did this work, there was a particular portion of highway that I would drive on, which had several cell phone towers placed almost strategically to like zap the people on the roads, it felt like. And I would remember feeling almost an iron band around my head. Um, I think that still, still affects a lot of folks up there, but I do distinctly remember as I started to do this work and expand out and having pieces with me that the iron band sensation just evaporated. So I think that a lot of folks in Pennsylvania who are now able to see the sky more clearly and who have less of a pressure on their head, less of a pressure on their heart, I've observed that there has been a softening of their hearts and that there has been a great renaissance, if you will, an expansion into more of a holistic and more of a spiritual practice, especially in the city of Lancaster and the region surrounding that. And I had done a lot of that work around 6 and 5 years ago. And then around 3 years ago, I noticed things really began to shift. So I like to think that my tools have helped with that shift. And there's a lot of amazing people in that region that I'm friends with and who I've worked with and who are doing their own amazing work, such as, sound healings or having an herbal apothecary or an event space where they do amazing work like this. So there's a lot of great things happening there. And one of the best things is that you can look up now and you can see the stars. You can see a clear night sky, and this thick haze of pollution that I grew up with has been seriously evaporated to a major extent. So that's a little
I
bit of my story.
tip my hat off to you, my friend. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do. That is amazing.
Oh,
Wow.
you're most welcome.
Can you share with me, you shared a little bit before about you the area that you were able to clear
Hmm.
with the pollution, with the clouds and things like that. Can you
Hmm.
can you talk about that a little?
Sure. So the original area that I feel was effectively cleared when I started this work was probably around like a 10-mile range in the sky of just much more clear skies. There were still a lot of chemtrails, but the chemtrails would evaporate within around a 10-mile radius. As I continued to do that work, as I continued to do gridding on various significant points in the landscape, working with some freeing of the natural energy, the natural ley lines and things, I began to see that range expand out towards, 20, 30 miles. And then as I began teaching workshops and having some amazing people come together to learn how to build some of this technology, they would then take that to their homes in within the region and continue to expand out that bubble to the point where we have around 100 miles square. Well, it's an oval, 100 miles squared oval of sky that is seriously benefited from Eastern Harrisburg out to Gap, and then a little bit north and a little bit south, kind of along that Susquehanna River Valley. And yeah, it's just amazing to see what can be done by people who are determined and by people who are willing to go through the internal work that is required to achieve these things.
That's so cool. Now, we've been talking a little bit about someone that I'd like you to help with me here, me being in Australia and you being over there in the US. I've got
Mhm.
somebody over there in the US that could really benefit from doing some geopathic stress clearing. Can you tell
Mhm.
me just briefly what you do, like when you go to somebody's house? Like, do you go inside first, do you go outside first, do you like how do you sort of approach it, just so the people that are watching this sort of know um the
Mhm.
basics of what you do?
Gotcha. Okay, so sounds like you're referring primarily to the geopathic stress analysis and remedy.
Yeah, because
And
it's different, right? Because you're doing there's two part or there's a few parts to what you do. There's the home and environmental mitigation for people where they live, and then there's
Mhm,
the wider environment of
mhm.
you know, air pollution and and the effects with the weather and things like that.
Yes, yes. There's multiple layers to all of this work. But really it does start with the individual and their home, and especially, the space where they sleep, the space where they prepare their food, and the space where they, want to have peace, where they go to recharge. So yeah, so one of the best ways to approach those types of spaces is through geopathic dowsing. Geopathic dowsing is discussed a lot in Slim Sperling's universe and also in feng shui. And there are innumerable works on dowsing. So this method in particular is very beneficial for helping people harmonize their space and feel that level of peace. One of the things I do first when I get to a place, if I get to a home or space, is I just do an initial walk around and I almost let the homeowner give me a tour, whoever's place it is. You know, I just follow them. I see what they say, what do they point out, what do they ignore, and what sticks out to me. And that's one of the most enlightening parts of the process of the analysis actually is just getting a tour from the individual who lives there and getting a chance to see from an outside perspective, my first time being there, what they're missing. Because those points that they're missing are the things that are typically being psychologically blocked out because they don't want to face the thing that's causing them these problems. So once we get an initial tour, I will take some time to center myself and clear myself. And then I will grab a couple of L rods, which I don't have a pair on my table here, but typical dowsing rods, L rods. And I like to go in a clockwise direction around a space. So I like to start outside and get an initial pass around the entire structure and observe any energy lines that may be coming in, or observe if there are any vortexes or underground streams, or observe if there are any nearby infrastructure such as trains or power stations. And from there, I will apply remedy as I see it is required. So I'll go around and install dowsing rods in the form of a staple. I'll place them in the points where they're going to negate or redirect the harmful energy lines. And that's my initial assessment, my initial remedy. From there, I'll move inside the home and fine tailor it to the specifics of each home, because each home has its unique quirks that have to be addressed differently, but you have to start from the outside, at least in the way I like to do things, because you want to eliminate anything coming into the home, and then move inside. So that's how I like to work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense for me. That's the logical way that I would probably order it as well. You know, like
Hmm.
sort of mitigate the pressure from the wider space and then move
Hmm.
inward to centralize and correct the space that they're moving around in and living in. And it's so
Hmm.
underestimated, isn't it? The people are my experience, the reason why this really came onto my radar is because I lived in a place called Sandgate, and this is the we moved in there. We lived there for 10 years. I would have to say that the energy on that land and like I just knew we were being interfered with. Every time we were in that home,
Hmm.
we were raging at each other, the whole family. And then we'd
Oh
leave
dear.
and everyone would calm down, there'd be peace, and I'd be like, there's something. And so I got person after person around the house. I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's spirits or whatever. And in fact, it was ended up being a walkthrough, a thoroughfare for indigenous spirits to go through, and it was also a portal
Oh,
area. And
mm.
what I will share is I don't share this with many people, but I had a friend living one block away from me. She was a client of mine, and then we became friends, and we'd meet up, and she'd start doing some channeling work and stuff like that. And I'm like, ooh, okay. And so she'd really get into this whole channeling thing. And then we had this big storm. We had this cracking bit of lightning came down, and that night she started speaking in tongue, and she indigenous tongue, and she did not stop, and they had to take her to hospital. They
Wow.
emitted her and committed her, and she's been on a plethora of drugs ever since.
Oh, oh
But I
dear.
would basically call it body snatching, is what I would call that.
Mm. Wow.
And what I learned after that experience is that, yeah, we Sandgate is beautiful, but there's some swampy areas, quite they call it the wetlands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I understand in the history of that area is there's quite a lot of fighting, and
Mm-hmm.
and then there was also, we had a mobile phone tower down the bottom of the hill, so we used to get a bit of that. So it was just, there's all these things were converging, and now when I look back I go, oh, it all just makes so much sense. No wonder we were so disturbed in that house. And then people don't really piece it all together. They just think that, maybe they don't like their husband, or you know what I mean? And it can basically pull apart families. It can the energy of a place can basically destroy um, a lot of really amazing things. So, this is where I'm also interested in, because I feel like if people just knew this and could mitigate some of these issues, then they would heal
Mm-hmm.
better, they would sleep better, they would relate better to one another. I mean, I've heard, that through Slim's work and people talking about this work, that the crime rate goes down significantly, right? Because people are more at peace. They're not in that adrenal rush all the time. And then we know that sort of, beings without bodies, entities, whatever you want to call them, whether you believe in it or not. I do. I've had my own experiences with that. I feel certain energies. And look, there's nothing good or bad with them, other than they're just trying to find a source of food, a source of energy, and they'll hang around areas that can feed them. So yeah, so my feeling is that when you clear these the land, and you downplay the EMF chaos that we're living in, and even the effects of uh, electricity, right? Electricity leaks, it leaches out of the wires. So you've got dirty electricity, you've got all sorts of different things, and that can have such a big impact on people's wellness. So I
Mm-hmm.
think this is a huge area, and I think the
Mm-hmm.
work that you do is incredible.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, and if I can just comment real quick on what you said there, because there's quite a few interesting things that I would love to launch into like multi-hour tangent on. But I'm gonna narrow in on the home remedy on this, and then perhaps another time we can discuss interacting with and protecting against any types of entities. Um, and I'll particularly point out there's ones that utilize electrical lines to like travel, but we can get into that another time. In regards to correcting the home and the space. So of course, when you have a harmonized home, it's going to enhance the positive emotion that people are having. And they do talk about reducing the crime rate in Slim Sperling's universe. And I also shared my story of how I observed the sky being cleared, affecting people positively. So these things work on a very subtle level. They're interacting with the energy body, and they're also interacting through the energy body with the psychology within people. And I want to share quickly a story about a client that I did some work for in Maine, northern Maine. So this gentleman had myself and one of my associates out to install some technology at his home. and around his home as well. We did a grid around his home and kind of like expanding out onto some of the neighboring properties. It's a very wooded, forested area, very remote. Well, he loved his brother and his neighbors and stuff. He loved them very much, but he had this tiff with his brother years going back. You know, they kind of butted heads. And he brought it up to me as we were there and doing the work. We were there for about 10 days doing this work, and pointed it out to me as something that he was like hoping to see resolution on. It wasn't necessarily something that he was looking to the technology to resolve, but more of something that came up as he's beginning to be exposed to the benefits and work of this. So, cut to 3 or 4 days later, and he goes crying over to his brother's house and says sorry to his brother. He had his heart softened and went and apologized. You know, he wanted his brother to apologize, but he ended up apologizing. And then they all came back and we had a delicious dinner and they had a couple of drinks and they were patting each other on the back. So it was just a beautiful example to me of how this type of thing can work.
Oh my goodness, that's music to my ears. Wow. Wow. And, you know, it's so powerful. I absolutely love this work, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about how to apply this here in
Hmm.
Australia.
And I'd love to chat just real quick as well about some of the tools that can be utilized, you know,
Yes, please
especially
do,
in
because,
harmonizing a home. So the geopathic dowsing approach is great. You can get a lot done with just dowsing. However, you can achieve even more when you bring in a couple tools. So for instance, here I have a mini sacred qubit harmonizer with
oh
a
wow, look at
selenite in
that.
the core here.
That's
And it was,
beautiful.
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
That's
So
gorgeous.
a piece like this is just absolutely perfect to place in a house or in a car and can really help with bringing harmony to the space. If you imagine a toroidal field coming out from this and expanding out in layers, you know, into a space, this can have some amazing benefits on helping with the psychology in a space and helping with the movement of energy in a space. And then there's another tool that's excellent for working on homes, which is even much more affordable than these harmonizers. And that would be a standard sacred qubit ring. And a sacred qubit ring is perfect because you can apply it directly to the smart meter of a house. All the energy passing through the smart meter will then pick up the energy of the sacred qubit ring. It will be infused into the electricity that then travels through the entire house, and it will additionally help reduce and structure the emissions of that smart meter. So those are two ways that you can integrate tensor tools into a home to really assist with the remedy. And there's all sorts of tensor tools that you can use. Like for instance, this is a double twisted empowerment. It's called like a new dimension. This is a one quarter size double twist empowerment, and I'm going to be using that in a design I'm making here. But there's a lot of different ways to integrate tensor tools that can be very beneficial.
Absolutely, I agree. Like, there's one thing is to have your environment mitigated, but
Hmm.
mitigated. And it is another thing to actually get your own tools so that you can stay
Hmm.
in a field that is, you know, the fact that we're being bombarded all over the place with chaotic frequencies all over the place, chaotic
Hmm.
energy. And then you can walk around with your own beautiful little bubble of light and frequency. You know, it's very, very powerful. The amount of light and frequency that come through those rings is extraordinary. What I did want to ask you is that the harmonizer that you had, is that selenite in the middle, or is that a quartz crystal?
This is selenite.
Yeah, beautiful.
I really like selenite. I work with selenite a lot.
I
I
love
keep a piece
selenite.
on my laptop like all the time. A lot. I also have like some, different stickers and things. But the selenite is one of the best stones for interacting with the light. And I personally find it to be one of the most beneficial stones that you can work with, honestly. I recommend everyone have selenite
I agree with you. Can I do a little quick show and tell for you? I just need to
Please,
go get it.
let's see what you
Okay,
got
one
there.
second.
This is some black tourmaline, selenite and black tourmaline together.
Oh, nice. I like it. Okay, so here we go. We've got this is my selenite. This is a
Hmm.
selenite charging plate.
Very nice.
And we've had I don't know if you can see this, but you can't see it very
Hmm.
well. It's actually been
I'm.
laser etched with a
Hmm.
eternal life geometric code, right? So it sort
Hmm.
of emanates a biofield. So that's like a
Hmm.
toroidal field, but a sort of a one-dimensional sort of flat picture. I have Taoist alchemic spagyrics. I have a piece of
Mm.
my hair. You can't see it, but it's wrapped around the lid.
Hmm.
I put that on like that. I
Hmm.
get the hang on, I get the field generator.
There you go. There you go. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Hmm.
Yeah, and you get yourself a little broadcasting device here, right?
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
the selenite is cleansing the you know, the field of the person, but also keeping this nice and clean and clear. The
Hmm.
field generator is expanding out. Now this one here is ginkgo. This is ginkgo biloba.
Hmm.
And I didn't take anything internally, but I just you know how you talked about the band before?
Yes.
I have personally experienced that fuzzy like interference. It's like I can't.
Yeah.
It's like brain fog. It's you can't get clarity. You can't make
Yeah, and
decisions.
it like degrades into like anger or
Yes,
frustration.
yes. And fatigue.
Hmm.
You know, these are the symptoms. Amplifying fear is a big one.
Definitely amplifies
Yeah,
fear.
and because fear, you know, there's a lot of fear on the planet, particularly right
Yep.
now.
Hmm.
And so, and then, you know, like I noticed, you know, being 52, turning 53, my kidney function wasn't as fabulous as what I wanted it to be.
Mm.
I didn't have an infection or anything like that. I just like, oh, my output towards the end of the day is not as good as what it is at the beginning of the day. So I was like,
Hmm.
okay, well, ginkgo works on microcirculation. I was like, okay, and it also helps like with tinnitus, with brain, with longevity, you know, all of that sort of stuff. And it's like, okay, I'll just play with this. You know, when I got the tools, I was like, oh, what's possible here? So I love experimenting, right? I'm serious. Like my kidney function output increased, my brain clarity, just everything sort of came online. I was like, wow, this really does work. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
And the
that's
other,
fantastic.
I think that, yeah, a lot of people are in fear of money right now too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're all feeling the pressure of the, you know, the destabilized economies and stuff. You know, I have some silver coins here. Yeah.
There you
A,
go.
a little bit of silver coin, put your hair on it, you know, and I work with, you know, obviously with the radionics, we
Hmm.
have codes, but I work with certain tuning codes like this particular number. It's back to front for you, but it's 318-612-518-714. That's a tuning. That's a Grabavoy
No.
number for
Oh, you
cash
grab a
flow.
voice. Okay, I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Grabavoy. Then you stick that there, you know, and you've got yourself a little intention magnifier, right? Of
Mhm.
you know, in increasing cash flow. It works really well.
It
Um,
does. It does. I love pairing the tensor field generators, the Janisa crystals, with silver. I like pile up a little dish of silver and put one of those in.
yeah,
And yeah, yeah, what you just demonstrated with the broadcasting capability of that tool specifically is one of my favorite things to do with tensor tools. I love the tensor field generators. Those are one of the ones that I make the most often and also recommend to the most amount of people. Honestly,
yes,
much more than harmonizers. I
yeah,
love harmonizers, but tensor field generators are
yeah.
exceptional for
Well,
anyone who's going to do some like more more directed work.
Yeah, well, I like the fact that it's got a dual use because you can wear it as a bracelet, right? So you can actually have
Hmm.
it harmonizing you, but then,
Hmm.
and then, but you do have to be very, very clear with your intentions. You have to be detailed with your intentions. You can't
Mm.
be roaming around thinking bad things about people. You have to have done your spiritual
That's
work.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yes. Yes. And
Because yeah,
that's one
when
of
you,
the things about radionics and any tensor tools or anything like that. If somebody's going to go around with bad thoughts and they're going to try to work with these tools, they're going to learn very quickly that is not acceptable because it's going to come back to bite them.
you have to be working on having a pure heart. You have to have, worked on your biofield cleansing,
Mm.
your etheric field, your
Mm.
astral field.
Mhm.
These are the things that and but what I do love about these tools, Aaron, is just it does fortify that, so it makes our work much easier. It makes our work less interfered with. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, and perhaps in a future chat we can talk more about the entities and things because
yes. It's
particularly I have some experiences with being protected against that through the use of these tools and being protected against that type of interference. So yeah,
fantastic. Well, I will share one quick story with you.
please do.
So I'm a novice at this. I'm playing with the tools. I'm not that like I haven't been doing for that long, but I can tell you, like being in the healing arts, I've played with so many modalities. It's not funny. So it sort of becomes second nature. So when I got my hands on these tools, I was like, "Ooh, what's possible here?" And some of the videos that Slim talks about, they run the big ring over the body. So I did that with a few people, and you can sort of scan the body and you can pick up the little, sticky bits, where things are not happening so well. They're not flowing so well. But the fact that you can just clear the auric field with those the rings. Now, I did my 17-year-old son, and they're out doing all sorts of wild things at this, time out in the world. And anyway, he came over and like I said, oh, let me show you these tools. And he's like, oh, okay. So anyway, I ran that over him. I could see there were a few sticky bits. And I let him sit in the ring. And he's like, oh, Mum, my feet are tingling. They're buzzing. They sort of feel buzzy. I was like, oh, okay. And then I got the feedback loop and I did it on one of the sole of his one foot. And he's like, oh, stop there. He said, oh, wow, that's pulsating. I can feel it pulsing. I was like, oh,
Wow.
okay. And it sort of felt slightly uncomfortable. Like he was like, oh, what is that? And then I went to the other foot and he was like, whoa, that's feeling lots of heat. It was on his right side. And it's like, okay, that's where your liver is. And, when you go out partying and all sorts of things, like you put a lot of pressure on your liver. So anyway, he's like, oh, I feel the heat. So, it was just so fantastic that,
Oh, what?
younger people are coming in like yourself, 25 years old. You've already downloaded massive amounts of wisdom, with Slim and his work. And I'm sure the spirit of Slim is working with you really closely.
Mm.
um and and then these younger kids coming through, very my son hasn't been vaccinated at all. Like, we did homeoprophylaxis, and he's been brought up all organic, so he's got the sensitivity to energy. And and I did it on other areas. I had different parts, I put it on his pineal, and I did it on few, and he just described, that he literally could really feel the energy of these tools. It's just,
Mm.
yeah, it's so incredible.
That's wonderful. Ah, he's a lucky lad.
Yeah, so Rod and Rachel explained when they were using, so they would do a lot of festivals and a lot of markets and things, and they would use the sacred one, or like, no, I think they would use, oh, I think they started using the empowerment one or something, and or was it, I can't remember which one they were using. Anyway, they one time, she said to me, I'm not going to give you that one to use. You need to use this one because it's safer when you're out in public and you're doing this scanning. She said, if you get an entity, she said, their face will contort, their demeanor will change, you'll just have trouble on your hands. So, that was interesting. They've dealt with a few entities with these rings.
Yeah,
So,
and I'll say that there's been multiple occasions where I have been utilizing either tensor tools or other approaches such as biogeometry, where I will encounter an individual who claims some high spiritual advancement, and then I will expose them to these tools, and they will completely turn their face will take on a look, their energy will shift, and it's quite interesting to observe. There's a lot of false light out there, and these tools are very much revealers and clearers of that.
Thank you for saying that. That was well said. I absolutely 100% agree with you.
Mm.
The false light matrix. There's all sorts of things going on. Aaron, you and I could talk for days. I just love.
I'd love to come over for a cup of tea.
Please come over to Australia.
I want to share with you and your friends and whoever's watching as well that there are quite a few people in Australia who make fantastic tensor technologies and more. And Sacred Knowledge, they have been doing it for a long time. There's some other folks who have been longer in the game, and there's some new folks who are like fresh to the game, but with great talent. And I'm just going to shout out real quick Chemfails Oz on Instagram, and his name is Leon. He may or may not have a little bit of a tiff with Sacred Knowledge. I'm not privy to all the details, but they're both wildly talented. And additionally, there's a group called Aramea. Aramea is the woman who leads it, and then she has some people who are on her team who they create some exceptionally like well-crafted devices from powered crystals to tensor technology to toroidal generators. And then there's a couple other folks. There's some people who stepped back from the craft recently. They went by Dragon Forge, and they were creating some of the best harmonizers in the world. Exceptional quality beyond anything that any of us have seen. Like they were some of the best. So Australia has some amazing tech creators, and there's many more who I would love to name, but those are some of the few who I would suggest for people to check out. You can find them on Instagram or elsewhere.
And I would also add Sacred Knowledge, Rod and
I did
Rachel.
mention them too. They
Oh, you
they were like my first one on the list. Yeah.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Yeah,
Right.
because
So
that's who I'm working with. I've paired up with them and
yes.
the work that they're doing is amazing. And they have incredible testimonials anywhere from people that
Yes.
have been smashed up by motorbike accident and making remarkable, miraculous recoveries to,
Hmm.
all sorts of things. So, there's some good people doing good work in the world, and we got to shout out to
Hmm.
those people 100%. We
Definitely.
got my feeling with this, Aaron, is that we've got to get a network of people. We're collaborators here. We collaborate and get regions of places connected with these tools
Hmm.
so that
Hmm.
we're basically harmonizing it for people that are not in the know about all of this stuff, right? That they don't
Hmm.
even understand that any of this is going on. And then
Hmm.
that way they can sort of have more harmonized lives. So there's people here ready to do the work. So I'd also like to put a shout
Wonderful.
out and a call out for anyone who has the means and the desire and the will to go out and invest in this technology to actually get this out to the world, because this was Slim's dream. This was his
Hmm.
idea to go out and clear the pollution that's on the planet, to
Hmm.
stabilize weather patterns, to clear the energy field of
Hmm.
people and the homes. Just
Yeah.
extraordinary work, and people are being called to it now. There's a renaissance, there's a revolution
There
going
is.
on,
There
right?
is. Yeah.
And where, so tap into that, really draw yourself into what's going on here, because
Yeah.
the subtle energy field, the is now known worldwide. People know about quantum science, they know about the field with Lynn McTaggart's work, they know about, all of these incredible connections, that we're swimming in a soup, a plasmic soup, all together. It's all one. It's oneness. So if we pollute it, everyone's getting polluted. So
Right.
we have an obligation to clean it up, and we
We
can do
do.
that. We've got the
And like you
technology.
said, there's people being called to it, and it's a lot of young people who are being called to this. And it's a challenging journey. So to anyone who's watching, if you know someone or if you can find someone in your area who does this type of work, I ask from the bottom of my heart to support them, for you to support them. Trust that they are doing amazing work for this world and purchase something from them or ask them how you can help because
Yeah.
it is a sacred obligation and we're not going to stop ever, but it's great to have help along the way. There's ways that people can help. So I just wanted to share that.
100%. 100%. I love your work. You talked about you've had some really big jobs, but let's get you some more really big jobs.
Thanks.
Let's all get some really big jobs and
For sure.
harmonize the planet. Aaron, it's been so amazing talking to you for the last what, hour or two? Two, I think it
Likewise, Cherie. Likewise.
So amazing. Now you were just talking about for those people that don't have a lot of time to dive into Slim's work and really find out the absolute magic that we're dealing with. And my understanding is this is ancient Sumerian technology we're working with here, potentially. I don't know if you came across that, but essentially you've got some tools that if you're not in the local area to do the geopathic stress mitigation, what are some things that people can do immediately? Say three things that people can do immediately that they can actually, um, without doing an assessment, enhance their environment and their healing capacity for their body.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, wonderful. So, one of the best ways that you can bring this type of energy into your home is through a simple sacred qubit tensor ring. And these are the original, basically the design that Sperling and his team found to be successful and very effective. And this is particularly beneficial for structuring water and also any kind of physical healing. If there's been any kind of injury, such as a shoulder injury, you can take the ring and put it all the way up onto your shoulder and leave it there even overnight or for a couple hours. And that will greatly help heal the body. Can also be placed over the heart or over any lower organs. And additionally, this is very beneficial for structuring water. You can place a jug of water in this overnight and potentize it. And the third use for this that I find very beneficial is to place it over a smart meter. They fit exactly over the ones in the United States. And for folks overseas, I'm not sure the measurements might be different, but it should fit right on over, and that will help correct the energy throughout the entire house. So that's one of the best ways that you can get started.
Okay, fantastic. We here in Australia, just so you know, we don't have round smart meters. So
Ah,
we have to use I think we use meter busters with orgone
oh, good. Yeah.
blocks and things like
You
that.
can also place these hanging on the inside of the wall facing the meter, and the beam will transfer into it.
Perfect. What's the next thing that people should do? Is it wearables?
Yeah, there's a lot of different wearables, and I don't have, actually, I do have one here on me right now. So there's a lot of different wearables you can get. This is an example of one that was made by a friend of mine in Rhode Island, and it is a orgone mix that has 9 different minerals in it, and then like an eco epoxy, and it has a Sri Yantra symbol on it. This one does. I like this. I wear it a lot myself. And I also am a jeweler and I craft jewelry that is specifically combining elements and minerals, which can help strengthen the body against electromagnetic energy and against geopathic stress and things. I work on those as well. Along the lines of crystals and those types of things, I highly recommend for people to have selenite. This is very affordable and can be placed throughout your entire home. And what selenite will do is interact with the light in your space, and it will help clear the energy in your entire space. So these can be fantastic to have, especially in your office where you're doing a lot of work, where there's a lot of EMFs. And they can also be wonderful to have in places like the bathroom where you're cleansing yourself. These can be very beneficial for that.
Yeah, because I find a lot of people when they're on the computer, particularly with the Wi-Fi, their fingers, their wrists, people
Yeah.
get achy hands. So I think that, and very brain foggy, very
Yes.
fatigued very quickly. So
Yeah.
I watched one of your videos where you sliced up the selenite and you put little slithers of it on the computer and things. I love that. That's just so
Oh, wonderful.
cost effective And yeah, I really love that.
Yep, cost-effective solution that everyone can do, like super easy. All you have to do is find your local crystal store and they will have this. I would be so surprised if they did not have this.
Yeah.
And I always keep a stick on my dash of my car as well. Helps clear the energy in the car as you're driving. So that's a top suggestion for anyone who's interested in enhancing their energy.
Now you talked about putting the selenite and what was the other one? Shungite, was it?
Right, so you can work with a variety of different grounding stones. I have an example here of a magnetite stone that's been polished. I also have here a piece of obsidian uh, that is not polished, but it does look shiny. And then this is black tourmaline that's been formed into a tower. So pairing together grounding stone and a cleansing stone is one of the best ways to enhance your EMF protection. On their own, they both have their own properties, but when combined together, especially black tourmaline and selenite, they create a very synergistic, very beneficial energy that can help you a lot with any kind of EMF exposure.
And this is what I think that a lot of people need to do is they need to have a wearable. And if you're a female and you want a beautiful wearable, you put together those two crystals and you can sort of use the copper and make a wearable for people so that they can have, they don't have to have that big disc if they
Yeah,
don't want to. You can
absolutely.
have something else.
I love crafting, jewelry. I'll have to get out some pieces for a future chat, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I combine the cute little stones and make it look all
yeah,
nice and like a nice cool pendant, and then
yeah.
you can enjoy the beauty and the benefits at the same time.
Great. And so so a wearable, then you've got the room harmonizer, and just tell us a
Right.
little bit about why that can be so powerful for people that are needing to heal.
Right. So here's an example of a small tensor harmonizer, and this one is a half size sacred cubit with selenite in the core. And these tools are exceptional for helping bring stability into your space and helping to clear any types of energy that could be disrupting you. One of the reasons why these are so helpful is because they are emitting a life force energy that, in particular for the sacred cubit, is of resonating at 144,000 hertz. And this life force energy resonating at that stable frequency creates an environment in which the body can come to homeostasis and can really heal. If you imagine the energy coming out of Wi-Fi, smart meters, and cell phones being as like this jagged up and down, sine wave that's not regulated, that can be harmful. And once that energy is absorbed into the harmonizer and travels through these regular twists, you can imagine how that will smooth out the sine wave. And when it's re-emitted, it's this nice, gentle energy, which is carrying the beneficial qualities of the harmonizer into your space.
Yeah, fantastic. And I know that Slim talks a lot about the harmonizers with the little balls on them and the
Hmm.
and playing the frequencies through them. Do you do
Hmm.
anything like that to put it in a home to keep the EMF and the pollution and harmonize, like emotionally harmonize the space too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that my primary approach is with analog technologies. I like to work with no inputs aside from what's ambient in the environment. However, there is great ways to integrate frequency generators into tools like these. Oftentimes, you'll see a crystal that has a sucker punch coil wrapped onto it, placed in the center of these, and those can run different frequencies depending on what player it's attached to. Additionally, yes, the balls that can be added as amplifiers to these can also be great. That just enhances the energetic absorption and emission of these tools.
Gotcha.
This one is still in progress. I need to put a base on it and things,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you can definitely amplify them that way.
So would that be big enough for a whole home? Like I would imagine that would do even a suburb potentially.
This little guy,
Yeah.
yeah, well, you know, I I like to work with these smaller sizes because they are very portable. And something like this is perfect for a small home. Something like this is also perfect for your garden or for your car. And especially cars, it's very beneficial to have one of these because you drive past a lot of cell phone towers and you're also interacting with other drivers and they may be a little upset that day. So having something that's emitting a harmonizing energy can just help you have that soothing and safe environment.
That's amazing. Like my feeling is, as a healer that works with people, I'm going to be using the tools very heavily on people to clear,
Oh,
chronic
good.
situations. But I think that we could also possibly all do with a set of rings. The
Hmm.
sacred, the lost. Sacred being for the physical body, the lost being for the mental, emotional body, the empowerment, and we've got one over here called the Arc, and that was the 33
Yeah,
number.
there's a variety of different qubits,
Yeah.
but I really recommend for people just to start with the original three, that would be the sacred, loss, and empowerment.
Yes.
And if they, work with those extensively and they're ready to move on to something else, there
Yeah.
is a lot of expansive research that's been done into that.
Now, with somebody that's say been in an accident and they're trying to recover, would you recommend maybe a large sacred under their bed to sleep in? Would that
Absolutely, yes. So a
Yeah.
3.5 size or a four times size sacred qubit ring is a wonderful way to harmonize your sleeping space. And I actually have one that's in 4 gauge, so a very thick wire that I sleep in the beam of quite often. And
Okay.
those are very versatile. You can use those for an aura cleansing. You can place it on your own bed to help with recovery. You can also place it under a pet's bed if the pet is suffering from anything. This can help the pet heal. So a large ring is a wonderful tool to have. A little bit more advanced, but a great thing.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.